The food industry faces challenges amidst COVID-19, and the hard insurance market is not making 2020 any easier. Temperature-sensitive goods, how using time temperature recording devices can help in navigating tough marine cargo insurance market conditions. Parcel enters the market with a new data-driven insurance solution. I'm Michael Lieberman, food and beverage practice leader at Foa Son Insurance Brokers, and this is Food for Thought. Before I begin, a special thanks to the great team over at Harbor Seafood. Harbor Seafood helped me with a special gift for the guest I have on the show today. You will see the presentation of that gift a little later on. Thanks to Harbor Seafood. I'm really excited to welcome my guest to the first episode of Food for Thought. Today's guest is Ben Hubbard. Ben is the CEO of Parcel, a technology company that also offers connected insurance products for perishables. Ben and I first met at the beginning of the COVID crisis. And for two people that have yet to meet in person, we've spent quite a bit of time together. Personally, I've been able to work with Ben and his team at Parcel on a couple of hard-to-place marine cargo deals, utilizing not only their insurance products, but also their data cold chain tracking technology. And this relationship couldn't have come at a better time due to the tough market conditions we find ourselves in today. Ben, thank you so much for joining me. You are the first guest on Foa Son's Food for Thought. This is the #1 food industry insurance risk management related webcast. I'm pretty confident in saying that we are #1 because I think we're the only webcast out there focusing on insurance risk management for the food industry. So we're #1. I'm sticking to it. So welcome.
What an honor. Thank you, Michael. Good to be here. And it's great to be on your first ever episode. Awesome. Really, what an honor.
So for our listeners today, Ben, can you do me a favor and just kind of give an overview of Parcel? What is Parcel all about? Maybe even tell the listeners a little bit more about you.
Yeah, well, so Parcel is a technology company. We have a solution that helps shippers monitor the conditions of sensitive cargo as it's stored and shipped around the world. So we can track things like temperature, humidity, understanding what's happening to that product. And then we use that data and the insights it provides to power a cargo insurance solution that we call Cold Cover. And we also, as part of our business, do a lot in the global public health space, which has been mostly unrelated to insurance until recently, but we monitor vaccines being distributed to low-income countries. So we currently work in several African countries, making sure that vaccines destined for kids in remote settings are safe and potent by the time they get there. And vaccines are a hot topic these days. So we're using those partnerships and that technology now to develop better risk management for the eventual COVID-19 vaccine distribution.
No, that's incredible. Very, very interesting topic. And I believe a congratulations is in order for you and your team at Parcel, because I recently heard in the news, the insurance news, that there is a new Lloyd's of London syndicate. I believe it's Syndicate 1796, that is dedicated to getting vaccines to the market and taking care of those risks. Really great accomplishment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that specifically?
Yes. So it's announced that we're not live yet, so we still have a little bit more work to do, but we're very excited about it. And this really is the culmination of those two sort of disparate kind of parts of the business I just described, global public health and cargo insurance. And one of the interesting kind of market failures that exists is it's very hard to insure pharmaceuticals, other global health related products that are going to many of these emerging markets. Just not a lot of appetite from underwriters for those risks. And so a lot of the times they go uninsured or self-insured by countries, but they're not actually self-insured. And so you'll have losses that actually have real human impact. And so what we've been able to do is actually bring better data on what's happening to those products once they get into countries, facilitate strategic kind of conversation between insurers and global public health agencies, and have brought a lot of really diverse partners together to make insurance cover possible for these vaccines, whether they're routine childhood immunizations or the COVID-19 vaccine. All of them are cold chain or cold sensitive products. All the COVID-19 vaccine candidates that are currently making their way through trials are all cold or even deep freeze chain products. So these are challenges that are going to impact everybody. And we need solutions to manage those risks to protect everybody, because obviously, as we've all learned, a case anywhere is a case everywhere. So we've created this syndicate that will have backing with some public sector capital, which we can't disclose yet. We'll be sharing risk with Lloyd's markets. We've named this syndicate, and for your listeners, a syndicate is basically an insurance company that operates at Lloyd's. They call it a syndicate. We've named it Syndicate 7. You have to have 4 digits. So we, and a lot of them are taken because Lloyd's has been around for 330 years. So
we selected bit of history there.
Yeah, and a lot of numbers that have been taken. So we actually landed on a really cool number, which is 1796. And the significance of that, that was the year that a British physician named Edward Jenner began to the discovery that led to the smallpox vaccine, which to this day is the only disease we've completely eradicated from the planet. So that's our inspiration. And we're going to put this to work for COVID, other related vaccines and pharmaceuticals that are going to developing countries. So it's been a lot of work and only possible with a lot of incredible partners. So thank you for asking about it.
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm really excited to kind of dig in and talk more about, before we get into more details about Parcel specifically, maybe just talk a little more generally about what's happening in the insurance marketplace, specifically the marine cargo insurance marketplace. It's been an interesting time over the past, few quarters of navigating this marketplace. What's your take on the insurance market right now? What's your opinion of where we stand with cold chain insurance related products or just market conditions?
Our sort of perspective on it has been interesting and different because we're actually coming at this from a technology standpoint as a kind of relatively new entrant into the insurance space. What's interesting for us is, perishables obviously was easier to write in a softer market. But generally speaking, underwriters don't like temperature sensitive risks. They're more likely to see a claim. And so all things being equal, they don't want to do it. What was interesting is, we'll have a situation fairly common where a shipper, insured customer, has had a claim in the past year, temperature related, and they end up sort of paying for that, obviously at renewal, and that their rate goes up. And so often the problem is, well, it was temperature related and we don't have any data, or we couldn't get the data, couldn't find the data. So what I think is changing now, which is interesting and certainly is our sort of angle on this, is the days of the underwriter then saying, okay, well, we got to make a rate adjustment, continue as you have, are changing. And now they're saying, look, if we're going to underwrite a couple $100,000 of risk on a transit, we'd like you to include, a $10 sensing device that can get us some basic data if things go sideways, or maybe even $3. So the cost of collecting this data, just given all the advances of technology, have dramatically dropped. The sort of usability and user experience of these devices. We've put a lot of work into making that data easier to collect, offload, analyze, and I think we got some footage of us doing that on something you sent me yesterday.
During my intro, I did mention that I surprised you with a gift. At this point, you know what that gift is, from Harbor Seafood, and I told the viewers that they would be able to see the presentation of this gift. So let's go ahead and cut to that footage right now.
What's this? Michael Lieberman. What is he setting? Okay, so apparently we're filming this, and I've managed to open the styrofoam box, and I'm excited to dig into what's inside. Definitely getting colder. We have a nice coffee mug here from Harbor Seafood. Thank you. Got our ice packs. Oh, here we have a canister of Harbor Seafood crab meat. Looks delicious. And equally importantly, looks like Michael's included one of Parcel's Trek tab devices, so we can see if this is seafood that we want to eat. So I'm just going to hit the button here. Looks like it's blinking green, so that's a great sign. We can, in a second here, dig into the data on the web to get more details, but it's a very good sign. And if you don't want to bother uploading the data from one of these using your phone, you can just throw it in one of these smart bins and it does all the work for you. It sends the data up to the cloud, you can go straight to the web and get all the data and share it. Okay, so we've offloaded the data from the Trek tab. It's now back up in the web, and we can click into this shipment here. We see Harbor Seafood coming to Parcel Inc., our crab meat. And we go and look at the data. So here we have it. Here's our time series temperature information. You can see it maintained a nice 31.9 degree Fahrenheit temperature. The max temperature was 64 degrees, which you can see over here in the red. But that was just in the first 8 minutes as they put the device in and it cooled down. And the rest of the shipment, you can see it's perfect. It's a perfect shipment. I'm going to go ahead and share this data now with you, Michael, and you'll be able to look at it wherever you are. Thank you, Michael, for giving us a taste of our own technology, and thank you to Harbor Seafood for providing us your delicious product.
All right, so that was great. So, I hope you were surprised, and more so, I hope you like crab meat. And if you do like crab meat, you have some fantastic crab meat from Harbor Seafood, some of the best in the business. So I hope you enjoy that.
Well, thank you.
What's for dinner tonight?
Yeah, well, so I've talked to my wife last night. I told her what happened, so we're gonna make some crab cakes and have some friends over this weekend and make them. So yeah, that was a nice surprise and fun.
And by the way, I am originally from Maryland, so I'm all about crab cakes. So you better make them correctly though. Always broiled, never fried. Okay.
Yes, of course. Yes. Of course. Right. So we use our technology, as you've seen from that clip, at a basic level, time over temperature, and that's not a radically new concept.
And look, it makes a lot of sense, putting insurance to the side, to use time temperature recording devices, in my opinion, it makes all the sense in the world. In a day and age where you have FDA looking harder at the cold chain and putting more pressure on companies to ensure that they are tracking the cold chain, I think it makes sense to use these devices. I think it makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of subrogation. There's someone at fault in the supply chain. The supply chain is ruled by third parties who are in the care, custody, and control of your products. So to be able to have this data where you can say without a shadow of a doubt, the temperature abuse happened on this day, at this time, for surely in your possession, there must be some negligence. So to be able to go back after these negligent parties and hold them accountable is worth something. And finally, when you do have a situation where there's temperature abuse to product, it doesn't always result in a food safety exposure. But time temperature data can provide you that evidence that it either is or it is not a food safety exposure. Perhaps it's just a quality exposure. And there may be a salvage opportunity for that product. And to be able to provide during a salvage sale, that hard data of, hey, here's the abuse that took place, here's the physical evidence of the abuse, here's the quality issues, and here's the amount of time that it went above temp. just so that buyer can understand that they're not walking into something that may be a food safety issue. So there's a lot of value to using these devices.
Well, those are excellent points, because I think sometimes it's not always obvious. Is, you know, when you're when you're collecting this data and doing it thoughtfully, it's a very good sort of self-selection sign to an underwriter. Like this client is serious about risk management, committed to collecting data and learning and improving during the policy period. But the data, if something does go wrong, you know, all of that cost of surveyors, all that, it goes on, it's claims cost, and it goes on the insured's record. So you're paying for that at renewal. So anything you can do, you know, better data means you're going to be spending less adjusting a claim. You're going to increase your odds of subrogating or getting a salvage sale. All of that is to the direct benefit of the insured and the insurer, and your interests are really aligned at that point. So, you know, I think it requires thinking a couple steps ahead around those benefits, and that's just from a tactical claim standpoint. You know, obviously we're about sort of lowering the risk, using those insights. We believe in it so much, we created this insurance product and program to underwrite the very risks that we monitor.
So a little bit more about now the Parcel insurance. Of course, I'm familiar. You and I and our teams have worked together on a couple of deals already. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about the insurance product specific to change of temperature losses, change of temperature coverage? I know you have a deductible buyback. What is that? And you have the main stock throughput policy that would sit on top of the deductible buyback. Can you just kind of walk through how that works, how it all comes together?
Yeah, well, so we started on this. It's, you know, I got kind of tired of talking to underwriters complaining about perishables and claims and no data. And we started to see all the ways we could use our platform to power better insurance. And it became clear that sort of waiting for the carriers themselves to kind of do it, we'd be waiting too long. So we decided to partner with them through this thing called a cover holder. So we basically have underwriters standing behind us, but we issue our own insurance policies, as you know, but maybe your listeners don't. So we're able to offer, it's called Cold Covers, our line of cargo insurance products. We have a few different ones. All of them leverage data we're collecting from our sensors to some degree. We, at a kind of broad level, for us, it's around measuring how the product itself is degrading. That's always been hard for underwriters to do. So in most insurance policies, you'll have, what's very common at least, is to have a mechanical breakdown clause, right? So the reefer breaks down for—
We hate those. We hate those.
Yes, you hate those. But you think about it, you know, if you have no other data source, okay, well, you know, that's one objective measure to show that something bad happened. So the reefer broke down for 12 hours or 24. By the way, that's continuous hours, right?
Right.
So your product has been lost well before that. And so it has the effect of actually excluding coverage. And you know this well. But so for us, it's like, well, we can actually measure how that product degrades. And, you know, in some cases, we can measure it down to the number of shelf life days lost, and we can tie it to food and regulatory, food safety.
Which is great for fresh products.
Yeah, particularly for fresh. So that allows us now to offer very broad and wide temperature spoilage coverage. We do that for a few different policies. One that's pretty cutting edge is a parametric policy. So that's entirely driven by the sensor. We require you to put sensors in every one of the shipments, and 3 of them a minimum. And if 2 out of the 3 are measuring catastrophic, as determined by your product, temperature spoilage, that's a claim, and we actually notify you and say, would you like to get paid now? No surveyors. So that's automatic. So it's a great product. We actually designed it for fresh seafood shippers who are doing sort of smaller, you know, $100,000 or less, often air freight shipments. A lot of those are kind of small, medium-sized companies. And, you know, a fast payment matters a lot to a company like that from a working capital standpoint.
Especially, you know, for fresh seafood, you know, shippers, they understand that, hey, if temperatures rise to a certain extent, it doesn't mean that the fish is necessarily bad, but like you said, it could shorten shelf life, which means that they have to do a fire sale, right? They have to get this product sold very quickly, move it very quickly at a reduced cost. So to have this parametric coverage in place it kind of just fills in that financial gap that occurs in a situation like that. Or like we see commonly, sometimes fresh shipments get delayed on the tarmac. They're kept at the proper temperature, but just that delay of getting that product to market, that creates an issue.
Yeah.
So a question to you on the issue of delay. If temperature remains consistent and there is no temperature deviation, but you just have a delay, is delay something, and historically delay has been a peril that has commonly been excluded in marine cargo insurance policies. We do not want to cover losses due to delay. Is that something that Parcel's looking at for fresh shipments where delay would be a trigger of coverage?
Yeah, in several of our policies, we do cover delay. And so it is temperature spoilage, howsoever it may be caused, including delays, including human error, electrical failure, mechanical, all the things that can contribute to that, which is, especially in this hard market, very rare. And again, it's a two-way street. So insurers, through us right now, are willing to provide wider coverage. The insured needs to take some steps to monitor those shipments. That's the deal. And so yeah, we have that. We have a couple other policies. We have a deductible buyback, which for your listeners is insurance speak for basically insurance on your deductible. So this allows you to basically have a secondary policy that allows you to set a really high deductible. We'll cover your ground up exposure there. So say you have a $250,000 deductible, we'll cover that for you. And then it allows you to kind of lower the premium on your SDP or all risk policy. The effect is lower your overall cost of insurance, give you better coverage,
right.
Because that coverage we're providing, again, provides that broader temperature coverage.
Absolutely. And we've looked at some of those together, and I think it's a brilliant concept because you can then attract more potential underwriters to the let's call it the main show, right? That main stock throughput policy that ensures those catastrophic exposures that food companies have when it comes to storage risks. You can invite more competition to those insurance negotiations while bringing in those higher deductibles, but then having a solution through the deductible buyback via Parcel. It's a fantastic concept.
I should mention, we also provide an all-risk STP product through a new facility we just launched with several leading cargo insurers. So we're really excited to be able to kind of provide a kind of soup to nuts all-in package.
From a structure standpoint, would that facility sit above the deductible buyback, the Parcel deductible buyback program? So you still have 2 layers for one nice continuous.
Yeah, so we can do both. We can do the buyback, and we have a separate panel of insurers for that, and then we have another panel that does the all risk. So yeah, it's great. And I think what's nice about it is it is educating the market around this kind of smart data-driven underwriting approach.
Right.
And at the same time, bringing coverage that insureds are used to having and are seeing going away. And there's nothing fun about paying more and getting less. So it may be the case, clients have to pay a bit more, but we're hopeful that that means they don't get less. In fact, hopefully they may even get more.
Absolutely. And look, when you're dealing with perishable food companies, I mean, I have found in 20 years of focusing on this industry, that, the number one cause of loss is some type of change of temperature event. And very rarely can an insured prove that that change of temperature event was a mechanical breakdown of refrigeration equipment lasting 24 consecutive hours. And that is the type of coverage that many underwriters are pushing to the forefront and saying, hey, if we're going to do this risk, this is all we're going to provide. We do not want to cover spoilage losses unless you can prove mechanical breakdown lasting 24 consecutive hours. And that's a very scary proposition for food companies, right? This is their number one exposure, right? So to pay premium dollars and then have an event that takes place and find out we don't have coverage for that, it doesn't put a great taste in their mouth when it comes to insurance. So I really do appreciate what Parcel's doing to try to fill that gap. Now, as far as additional value proposition, when I look at the value that I provide to clients, I like to think that my value proposition is the fact that I know my client's business very well. I can talk the industry talk, not just insurance talk. I can talk outside of the confines of an insurance contract. to kind of help my clients with more robust risk management tactics. In the food industry, as you know, razor thin margins. So executives are constantly looking at what's the added value. So when it comes to Parcel, outside of the insurance product itself, outside of the technology itself, what is Parcel's value proposition in getting companies to be more attuned to their cold chain? How can you help them? What's your value in that area?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few dimensions to it. I mean, at a high level, we want to help them save money and reduce losses. And that has a lot of implications for the company. We've talked about the insurance ones. I think just from a cost standpoint alone, the device that I just picked one up here. So the device that we played with in that video, this is actually, you were the first beta user of our first batch of manufacturing on this new product we're calling the Trek Tab. But this is a under $10 device that we're really excited about. And that I believe makes us the cheapest data logger on the market from a cost standpoint. It's not about the hardware, right? But people are paying, even a couple bucks more than that for the cheapest one. So, I think we can actually save you money on hardware, but obviously it's not about the hardware, it's about the data that's going to generate. And that's where, improving during the policy period, using that same data to support legal, regulatory, food safety requirements that most of your seafood customers have. It's avoiding those costly claims. And we actually, the pricing we provide on all this is discounted when it's put into an insurance context. So we kind of bundle these things together.
And I also understand that Parcel is a new member for those who are listening, who are in the seafood industry and specifically who are National Fishery Institute members. Let me welcome Parcel as a National Fisheries Institute member. So welcome to NFI.
Yes, well, we're so pleased to be an NFI member, and everyone who's part of NFI is so passionate about NFI. So I feel very lucky to be part of this esteemed club. And, we want to be able to bring benefits. So we actually offer an NFI discount to any NFI members as part of this program. So it's like one hopeful benefit. But yeah, it seems like a great community, and we're excited to kind of get to know its members and hopefully work with some of them as well. And by the way, I should say, I have been so impressed by your knowledge of the seafood industry. You really know your customer, and you know their business, and you know their supply chains. And it's fun to work, with a broker who's so deep and knowledgeable. And we've learned a lot from you. So you've improved us in the time that we've known each other.
I appreciate that. I guess maybe I'm a fish guy first, insurance guy second, right? So
not a bad way to be.
not bad at all. The name of this webcast, whatever it is food for thought. So Ben, give us some food for thought. If I were to come to Ben's house for dinner, what is Ben's favorite meal to prepare? Go. Better include Harbor seafood crab meat.
Yeah, so I do love a good seafood dish. I love crab cakes. It's a bone of contention with my wife because I am embarrassed. I don't cook often enough, or basically hardly ever. So she would be laughing. She heard that question. I do like to make hamburgers on the grill, but I'm not really good at much else, I'm afraid to say. But I love food.
Hamburgers on the grill are great. That's great. Look, Ben, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to our continued work together in this space. And who knows, maybe you and I will find a time to get together in person and not via Zoom. But I really appreciate you being on the show today.
This was fun, Michael. Thank you. And it's good to be guest numero uno. You're on to great things from here, I'm sure.
And remember, this is the #1 food industry focused risk management insurance webcast.
#1. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
You're very welcome. Take care. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for our first episode of Food for Thought. A very special thank you to my guest, Ben Hubbard, the team over at Parcel, and a huge thanks to the team over at Harbor Seafood for putting together the shipment of beautiful colossal and jumbo lump crab. Learn more about Harbor Seafood and their products which are now available direct to consumer at harborseafood.com. To continue the conversation on cold chain insurance solutions, please reach out to me personally by phone or email. I look forward to hearing from you. And finally, thank you to my valued clients for your continued trust in allowing Foa Son to handle your risk management and insurance needs. I'll see you next time on Foa Son's Food for Thought. So, episode 1 out of the way, and now on to the live Q&A. Ben, again, thank you so much for participating in this. It was a lot of fun putting this together. So I know
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, it was fun to watch.
Yes.
It's a little hard to watch, but fun to watch.
It's always hard to watch yourself on the screen, right?
Right.
Patty, and I believe we had some questions come through. I think I forgot to mention at the beginning, if anyone does have questions, they can put those questions through the Q&A tool on the bottom of the Zoom screen. I'm not sure how it works on Facebook, but I think you're monitoring Facebook Live, Patty. I know we have some viewers on Facebook Live, but maybe if you could just dish out some of those questions that have come in so far.
Sure. So the first question we have from Brad is, there a way to monitor product temperature after the ocean voyage when it enters the cold storage facilities?
All right, so that's a Ben question 100%. Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of different ways to do it. You know, when the device is included at the origin, it stays with the product through transit and can then stay on the product during storage. At least our devices are very long lasting, so there's enough battery life and storage capacity to keep monitoring it through those different waypoints. The other is we do a warehouse monitoring product as well. So you can set up devices in the warehouse and monitoring the ambient temperatures of the cold storage facility. And we have relationships we have developed with some of the leading cold storage operators. So if you're going into many of those facilities, they're equipped with our smart bins and gateways, so that data can be offloaded. And they know what to do when a shipment is marked with a parcel sticker.
So it's a far improvement from what we've seen in the past, where a lot of these devices, if they are part of a shipment, they come in and they get thrown into a drawer, and that data is kind of lost.
Exactly. A lot of those data loggers end up literally in trash bags and are thrown away. So literally throwing away data, which is very tragic to us. And because even if a shipment goes well, it's really important to understand you can learn from good shipments and bad shipments. Why did one shipment go well, another one didn't? We're able to start to look into some of those variables that can affect a shipment outcome. So we want all the data, good shipments, bad shipments, all of those end up in our smart bin and uploaded with a gateway in those facilities. So meant to make it very seamless, passive, automated, take the work and the workflow out of it.
Got it. Patty, next question.
Sure. Actually, Justin Foa has a question. And he likes...
You know what, Justin Foa, happy birthday, Justin Foa.
Happy birthday, Justin. So he's interested in what loss trends the data is showing that you weren't able to, that wasn't obvious before you collected the data.
Yes, that's a great question. We've done a couple, some examples, particularly in the seafood industry. There's a lot of interest in packaging and evaluating new environmentally friendly packaging from a performance standpoint. Everyone wants to move to those newer materials that are biodegradable. How do they do compared to, say, styrofoam thermal box? So that's led to some interesting insights on different packaging products. We'll do studies on looking at shelf life lost during different segments of the supply chain. No surprise to any fresh seafood shippers. We see a lot of problems at airports, but then we can start to hone in on particularly where, and that's given some of our shippers insights. I'm losing most of my shelf life at the storage facility on the received at the destination airport. They're able to then go to their vendors and have a database conversation and show them what's happening to the product. And that's a much stronger position to be in when you actually can bring the data.
What's really interesting about these trends, Ben, is, in the past where you weren't able to really pinpoint what was happening, you would rely on your insurance contract to pay for those financial damages. But if those trends are consistently producing losses, and you're consistently producing claims, your insurance premiums are just going to be that claim value plus something, right? So if you can eliminate that, if you can really dig in and find a solution and you save on those claims, it's going to help bring that premium down. So yeah, finding these trends is critical.
Like the shipper pays one way or the other, right? And it's a higher insurance or it's eating those costs themselves. So that using data only helps them from a shipping standpoint, from an insurance standpoint, and just from a quality. I mean, every seafood company we work with is so dead committed to quality. And I think giving them better tools to be able to live up to that promise is something everyone's very excited about.
So yeah, sure. The next question comes from one of our colleagues actually over in Germany, and he would like to know, how do these storage exposures impact the negotiations around marine cargo insurance?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. You know, I think we can probably have a episode dedicated to this topic. But what we are seeing in the market is the premiums being collected on these stock throughput policies. And again, for those who may not know exactly what a stock throughput policy is, it's a marine cargo policy as the foundation that's covering the ocean exposure, the international transit exposure. And then you layer that policy with a storage section covering that storage exposure, which may consist of one warehouse or multiple warehouses. And then the last piece of it is the inland transit section. But what we are finding is that just the transit losses alone in the marine cargo sector are depleting premium dollars, right? So underwriters, and we could get into all the data, but underwriters are sitting there pretty much paying out losses for transit claims, and they're sitting with nothing left in the piggy bank when it comes to protecting for the more catastrophic losses, which are the warehouse exposures. So in the marine cargo industry, we are seeing a lot more focus being placed on that warehouse exposure and how to price that appropriately to ensure that underwriters can have some level or some idea of how to become profitable if they were ever to face a multi-million-dollar warehouse loss, whether it be a fire, whether it be a windstorm event, whether it be an earthquake out in California. So yeah, the warehouse exposure is being looked at in a much different way than what we've seen in the past. And it's definitely adding to cost. It's creating a situation where you're now bringing in more insurers in order to take pieces of risks, where maybe in the past you could find one insurer to take on the entire warehouse risk. Now you're needing to introduce multiple insurers to share that risk.
Thanks, Michael. So this one's for Ben, and one of our listeners is curious as to whether the Parcel technology is only available in conjunction with your insurance product or not.
Yeah, so we offer it without insurance, just straight up monitoring, and then the insurance is something that you can add on. You know, putting them together allows us to get more creative in terms of pricing. But no, we do a lot of just a strict kind of risk management, temperature monitoring.
Great, thanks. And so this sort of builds on that a little bit, a second part to that question. Are there other time temp recording devices that can be used in conjunction with other insurance products outside of the Parcel insurance option?
Ben, I'll take a swing at this. I mean, you see in the marine cargo world, you do see some policies that will have what are called warranties. Those are things that the insured must do to have the coverage that's afforded under the policy. Every now and then you will see policies state that the insured must use a time temperature recording device in order to access the change of temperature coverage that's being provided under that policy. In those situations, you don't necessarily see that a specific time temperature recording device must be used. You just must use the time temperature recording device. But I think the focus here with Parcel is what they're doing differently. And what they're doing differently is they are pretty much the only company out there, pretty sure of that, that is combining not only their own technology, but that they also have this insurance solution that provides the broad change of temperature coverage. So when you look at the market as a whole, there are still broad coverage options available for broad change of temperature coverage, where maybe there is no requirement for time temperature recording devices to be used. But in certain scenarios, for certain insureds, those opportunities may not exist in today's marketplace. And that's where the solution that Parcel is bringing to the table is very, very timely.
Yeah, and I may add a couple things to that. I mean, first of all, there are certainly other time temperature devices out there. They've been around for a while, and those are in use today. Insurers are certainly aware of those technologies. What we've put a ton of effort into, and literally several years of work, is embedding technology into the insurance product itself. So our policy wordings, the policy that governs that financial contract, was written, ground up with technology in mind. So that allows us to offer these wider custom coverages. And we've had to really hand build a group of underwriters that we've had to educate over a period of years now, showing them what our data can do, showing it how it can put it to work for them, and showing how it can improve the insurance experience. And I think the underwriting world is certainly coming around to this. We were, kind of on the leading edge on different days. And so I actually hope this is something that more underwriters embrace, and actually we see more of this. I just think it's good for the market, and the markets are large enough to sustain it. And, just to give you an example, if there's a $20,000 temperature claim, which is a pretty, often something you would see pretty often, underwriters call those attritional claims, but you'll get a lot of those. They could spend $10,000 just adjusting that claim, sometimes as much as the claim itself. So any way that they can use data to just automatically pay that claim or streamline that claims payment, that directly helps them. And it certainly helps the insured customer getting paid faster, less claim cost. You're less likely to see that on your claims record. So there really is a kind of mutual benefit win-win-win scenario, but you have to really build this into the process from the start. You can't just kind of throw on the tech at the end, or use the tech and say, go talk to your insurer. Maybe they'll give you some better coverage or pricing. It won't happen unless they're integrated.
Great, thanks, Ben. So we have one more question to wrap it up if we have a minute or two left. And this listener is interested in when will the marine cargo insurance market see improvement? So it's a good wrap-up question. Thanks for diving into that one, Michael.
I'll break out my crystal ball. Now, I think what we are seeing right now, when you look at the industry feedback, the data, when you're talking to underwriters, we are starting to actually see some improvement now. But I think us as brokers representing our clients, our insureds, we have to understand, why are we seeing some improvement? What does that mean when the underwriting community says that we're seeing improvement? And I think the improvement is being driven by, number one, underwriters are getting increased premiums. Number two, over the past few quarters to a year, we've seen a tremendous pullback generally on coverage terms. So those claims that used to come in and get paid are no longer being paid. So that is what's leading to some of the feedback we're getting, that market conditions are improving. But that does not necessarily mean that insureds are getting what they want out of the insurance transaction. But what I will say is that these signs of improvement will hopefully lead to more capital coming back into the insurance marketplace. It will lead to more competition within the insurance marketplace. And we'll get back to a point where we'll start seeing a loosening up of coverage restrictions, and hopefully a softening of the insurance premium increases that we're seeing. Ben, I don't know if you have anything to add to that point.
Yeah, I do think the hard market is here to stay for a while. And a lot of these underwriters have been told by their C-suites, they're putting income limits on perishable business. So that means they can be much more selective. They're going to put a lot more rate on these policies. The good news is this was not a class of business that was performing particularly well. So insurers were actually losing money, loss ratios above 100%, meaning they were paying out more in claims, they were collecting in premium, which is also not a sustainable model for underwriters. I don't envy you, Michael, because it's hard to tell a customer they've been underpaying for insurance for the last decade. But I do think there is a bit of a correction in the market to make it sustainable on the underwriting side. I think it's a tough time right now. And I think that's an important dynamic here, especially in the seafood industry. It's been impacted so severely by this. And it's really unfortunate to then also have to pay 20, 40, sometimes even 60% more on your insurance premium. It's the worst time to absorb that kind of cost. And we're very conscious of that in the work that we're both doing together. And again, I think there's only so much control Michael has over that, Parcel has over that. We all always fight for the customer. But again, let's make sure that you're actually getting insurance coverage that you need. So you're not paying a lot more and getting a lot less.
For sure. And I do think to insureds, this is the time to truly focus on what separates you as an insured from the rest. And if you can show underwriters that you are putting effort into loss control, risk management, investing in time temperature recording devices, so you and the insurer can have access to that data to, again, go after negligent parties or be able to see that there are certain negative trends that are happening within the supply chain, and you can fix those things very quickly. So this is the time to focus on loss control, make yourself shine. Patty, I do think we have one more question came in. I see a little flag on my screen. I know we're running past the 45-minute time slot here, but can you get in that one last question?
Sure. So Alex would like to know if the temperature recording device has attachments for probes.
Yeah,
we've talked about this, Ben.
Yeah, we don't have a device currently that uses a probe. We do have some other third parties we work with a probe device, which can be used for HACCP probing, also for deep freeze, ultra freeze type of products. So.
Right, and it's for those who may not understand why it's important to have a probe. For a product like the pasteurized crab meat that you receive from Harbor Seafood. Sometimes monitoring the ambient air temperature in a shipment can not give you the very specific detail that you really want to know, which is what is the meat temperature, right? So if you can have a thermometer with a probe that goes through one of those cans into the meat, you get the actual meat temperature of that product, which gives you far more accurate information to determine what steps are to take next. So back to the drawing board, Ben.
Yeah, well, it's on the R&D list. We'll have our own device at some point soon. But I also want to add too, if there's a client that is using another temperature monitoring solution that they're happy with, that they're using and have access to the data, and it can be shared with us and underwriters, which is usually the challenge. But if that's possible, we're happy to work with a third-party device. I think I said in the webinar, but it's really about the data. And we think there's a lot to the user experience in getting the data, but if we can get the data, then we're happy to work with other parties.
Now that's great to know. And we have gone past 45 minutes, which is something I want to try to stick to and respect everyone's time. But look, I want to thank Ben and the team at Parcel, Patty Devine, for all the work you put into this. Thank you for everyone who took the time to view today's episode. And please, stay tuned for news on episode number 2 on a new topic related to risk insurance pertaining to the food industry, of course. But thank you all for tuning into Foa Son's Food for Thought. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Michael.